Hey, welcome back, Paulie Sleepers fans. How you doing? Just enjoying a nice day outside here. Gonna start grilling some fajitas here in a little bit, but wanted to do some content here for you today, and we have big news to announce, but we'll start with the content. That way you guys don't have to listen to the housekeeping if you don't want to, but trust me, you'll want to stay till the end of the video because we have an exciting announcement that involves you. So tried to do a quick video today. Just a few players I want to talk about. First of all, Le'Veon Bell. So they couldn't get a deal done yesterday long-term for Le'Veon Bell. He wants wide receiver and running back money. They basically offered him 5 years, $70 million, which would extend basically the $14 million that he's making now for the next 5 years. He's making $14 million, which is top in the league for running backs, and now he'll just be on the franchise tag for $14 million and possibly be someplace else next year. One reason why I want to bring this up is there are rumors circulating on Twitter that Bell will not only hold out camp, but he might hold out up to 8 games. I don't know where they're getting this from. Lev Bell on Twitter said that he's going to play and this is going to be his best season ever. Now, those are strong words because he's had a couple really monster years, but let's look at this logically. If he wants to get paid more than $575, so I mean he's looking for like $120 million contract, he needs to play. He needs to play, he needs to produce, he needs to get out on the field. So guys, don't worry that Le'Veon Bell is not going to play half the season. Okay, trust me on this. I'm not 100% on it though. I mean, yes, I guess there is a chance. I mean, it's so unprecedented. But I guess if I was drafting today, I would draft Todd Gurley first. I do have Lev Bell number 1 on my rankings. I'm going to keep him there until further notice. Most people aren't drafting now. Most people I know aren't. By the end of August and September, we'll have more clarity, and I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to be a beast. And I have him ahead of Todd Gurley just from his consistent production. Next player I want to talk about is Cooper Kupp, who was a rookie last year for the Los Angeles Rams. This guy is number 1 on my ride or die list this year. So Brandon Cooks is in town now, who has replaced Sammy Watkins, who went to the Chiefs. Sammy Watkins got 70 targets last year and had 39 catches. He had 10 red zone targets that he turned into 7 touchdowns. Not really a huge year, not a ton of targets. Brandon Cooks is a similar player to Sammy Watkins. Some would say a notch better, and I would agree with that. But the point of having him on this offense is the same point that they had with Sammy Watkins last year. Stretch the field. Get those secondary off the line, get those boxes pulled back so they're not loading the box on the run game. Now, looking at this logically, Brandon Cooks in the last 4 years has gotten between 114 and 129 targets. And that's what he's needed to eat and be fantasy relevant. If he's replacing Sammy Watkins, 70 targets in the same offense, and even better than Sammy Watkins, what's our projection for him on targets? I'd say maybe 85, which is not going to be enough to have a Brandon Cooks type year. I think Brandon Cooks is going to be overdrafted, and I think Cooper Kupp is going to build on what he did last year. Cooper Kupp led the offense last year with 94 targets. He had 59 catches, 859 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he was surprisingly, when I dug into it, number 4 in the league in red zone targets. He had 23. Last year, Brandon Cooks had 10 red zone targets, and Sammy Watkins had 10. Cooper Kupp had 23. So you're drafting him as a PPR slot wide receiver with huge touchdown upside. Going into his second year into the offense, I think those catches increase from 59 to the 70-plus range, meaning more targets. If they continue to use him in the red zone, which they obviously look like they're going to, I look for Cooper Kupp to move up in the 75-plus catch territory, flirt with 1,000 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns, which means he's going to be an extreme value where he's being drafted right now. So draft the talent there, draft the opportunity. Don't worry about Brandon Cooks moving into that offense. Sammy Watkins didn't take targets from Cooper Kupp, and neither will Brandon Cooks. The last thing fantasy-wise I want to talk about is just the value of these PPR running backs. All my rankings are based on a PPR setting, and the number one team to target running backs last year in the passing game was New Orleans. The number 2 team was New England, and they are always in the top 10. And the number 3 team was San Francisco. No surprise there with Mike Shanahan out there. So, Alvin Kamara with Ingram's suspension and Jerick McKinnon with a huge contract and every opportunity to produce for Shanahan. Now, let's remember, Shanahan has produced a number 1, a number 4, a number 6, and a number 8 overall PPR running back in the last 4 years. Okay? And then number 3, Sony Michel. There's people that don't trust New England, and yeah, there is some risk as far as how New England uses their running backs, but the fact that they drafted fellow Georgia Bulldog offensive running blocking guard Isaiah Wynn 3 picks before Sony Michel tells me that that was their plan all along. Look, Tom's getting old. They're going to want to dump off to the backs even more. They're going to want to rely on the running game even more. The Patriots are always in the top 10 for red zone opportunities for running backs as well. So today I'm saying don't worry about Le'Veon Bell. He's still my number 1 overall. Cooper Kupp is number 1 on my ride or die list. And Alvin Kamara, Jerick McKinnon, and Sony Michel are in the top 3 offenses targeting PPR running backs. So those are guys you really need to heavily target in your drafts. So let's get on to the housekeeping and the great news. First of all, PaulieSleepers.com is up and running. The domain was available. I bought it from GoDaddy. And I thought I would have to probably buy a website management tool because I'm not very techy, but Jackson Mears, who's on the Paulie Sleepers team, has taken over and done amazing. In only 48 hours, he has this website up and running, with some content. You can click on the quarterbacks right now and get my rankings and extensive notes for quarterbacks 1 through 15, and you can click on the running backs right now and look at my rankings and notes for running backs 1 through 25. So this is very exciting. We have a website now, guys. So for the Juice in the Morning podcast, this was also Jackson's idea. We are going to do a listener league this year. So Juice is going to have a team, and Paulie Sleepers is going to have a team, and then we are going to draw 8 listeners to compete with us. It's going to be a free league with sponsorship, with free cash, with cash prizes and a trophy. And we are going to do a live online draft at the end of August. The winners for the teams will be announced on our first podcast, August 2nd. We're going to draw names out of the hat during the podcast. And then we will also do another live podcast during the live online draft, so we could talk about who's drafting who, and kind of you guys can play along at home. And then we will be talking about this league throughout the season because we're doing a weekly podcast. Paulie Sleepers and Juice in the Morning podcast is teamed up. Jeremy Miller will be involved as well, helping us with our DraftKings, and Justin Kelly has really helped promote this. And shout out to Shane Uriah Jones, who helps Justin with his podcast, he's been reaching out to some different people and trying to, expose their podcast and get more exposure and get some more high, celebrity types. They had a BMX guy on there, and they had Jake Johnson from NBC's hit show New Girl. He played the lead male role to Zooey Deschanel. He played Nick Miller. I watched the whole series, and it's extremely entertaining and well written. Some really hot chicks on it too. They had Jake Johnson on the podcast, so this really blew me away. I commented on Facebook. I said, "Hey Shane, are you replacing me with Matthew Berry? Because you guys might be growing a little too big for me." But I'm obviously joking. I'm in there. So we've been blowing up on Twitter too, and Jackson's been helping me out with that. Super Stan Sports on Twitter has hired me to write a weekly article for them about fantasy football. So my first paid gig, it's not much, but just happy to have been selected by them. I submitted a pretty extensive resume application form, and they accepted me based on my social media presence and what I've been doing so far. And I'm going to be writing a weekly fantasy football article for their Twitter blog, and they have 8,000 followers. So we've got the website up and running, more content to come. We've got Twitter blowing up. Follow me on at Paulie Sleepers. The podcast will be video, so you can listen or watch the video of the podcast. We'll give you plenty of links for that. Follow me on Facebook. It's Paulie Sleepers, Paul Lundgaard. Follow me on Twitter at Paulie Sleepers, and listen to the Juice in the Morning podcast with Justin Kelly to get more updates. And we've got just a couple weeks for the first podcast and only 15 days until the Hall of Fame game. So I wanted to also announce that all the money I'm going to make on the, not all the money, like the little bit of money that I make on the Twitter article, I'm going to be donating to a charity to be named later. And also, if I win the Listener League, any money involved with that, I'll be donating as well. God bless, guys, and thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.